We're going to dig into MetricStream, and then after that, kind of my favorite part of the conversation is learning about you more personally. I know you have three cats, and you're a bit of a neat freak, and we'll get to that. Um, so GRC,
Yep.
tell us about the solutions and perhaps services that MetricStream provides.
Yeah. So MetricStream is actually, and this was one of the things that I think attracted me to the company. MetricStream is really probably, if not the sort of original creator of the term GRC, certainly was very, very early days. And we've got a really, really strong brand in the space. And our, what I would say, unique value proposition beyond the expertise and the fact that we've been doing this for so many years is that our platform really addresses all the different aspects of GRC. So our whole value proposition is this concept of integrated GRC, where, if you look at the way companies work today, risks are really integrated, right? So you have to worry about supplier risk, you have to worry about your own internal cyber risk, you've got risks associated with the business, you have audit, you have, complying with all the different regulations out there. And there are different point solutions in the market that are very good at handling a lot of those elements. What our secret sauce is that we bring it all together in one connected platform. And so that allows organizations to really leverage what they might be setting up for purposes of enterprise risk with, some of the audit work that they're going to do. And what I think is really exciting, particularly for us, is that as we move toward, of course, everybody talks about AI, but as we move more toward this agentic AI world where you'll have agents that are going to provide capabilities to supplement what users are doing, what's exciting from a MetricStream perspective is that we'll have agents that kind of handle, the cyber side, the third-party risk side, the compliance side, the audit side, and those agents will all talk to each other, right? And when you have point solutions and things like that, it doesn't work quite as well. The other thing is, we just tell you a little bit more about the business. I mean, we play very strongly in some of the major and enterprise type organizations because what we found is that companies all have their own workflows and they want to see data a little bit differently, and they have different forms in terms of doing their risk assessments and testing and so forth. And so we focus quite a bit on providing configurability and workflows and really make that whole process automated for organizations.
When we think about heavily regulated sectors that warrant compliance solutions, we think of the financial industry as one. Others that maybe touch healthcare as well as government. What are the biggest sectors that you sell into?
Yeah, great question. Definitely banking and financial services is a big area for us. Healthcare, we do a lot with energy companies, pharmaceutical companies, but even in today's world, some of the vendors, right, software providers, right, they all you have to do things around worrying about compliance with like GDPR or things like that where it really cuts across. But I would say our biggest area when you look at our net base, it's largest with respect to the banking and financial services sector.
And as you look kind of forward, at what point of the company life cycle are you at? I mean, are you still in that? I presume you're still in the growth phase. Is it accelerating growth? Is it kind of more modest growth? How would you explain kind of the trajectory in the next few years?
Yeah, so we're at an interesting point in our life cycle. Again, we've been around for quite a while, and I would describe us as entering a new growth phase. So we've we've done well as an organization. Like any business that's been around for 20 plus years, we've had our up years and our down years. I think what we're starting to see is, again, sort of re-entering some nice growth, type timeframes here. And, a lot of that is due to pretty significant investment that we're making now in the platform and in the products where, you know, the blessing and the curse is that our system has been around for a long time. And so what that means is you get a lot of functionality, but it's also, legacy to some extent. And, fortunately, we're at a point in technology where modernizing some of those legacy platforms, bringing AI in, using third-party tools to help improve the user experience are all things that you can do today that even, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, wasn't as easy to do, particularly, the AI piece. So we're pretty excited. I mean, we just launched our latest version of the application the beginning of this month, beginning of October, and we had a whole bunch of features that clients have been waiting for. For example, we did a whole new reporting paradigm, or embedded a whole new reporting paradigm. This was something clients were looking for a while, and you're going to see quite a bit more. Our next major release is in January, so we've got lots of exciting things, both core product enhancements as well as AI capabilities built within the platform.
And when you go further into the what's driving the growth, do you find that it's going to come from like what you described, existing clients that were wanting a feature that now get it? Is there, maybe new customers that you're going after? Is it maybe enhancing kind of the product offering that you extend to consulting firms that then sell to their end customers? So how would you kind of unpack, like, what are the key areas to pushing growth forward?
Yeah. So I think for us, growth it's coming from actually all three of those areas that you mentioned. I mean, certainly existing customers are and tend to be a good source of additional revenue. And that goes back to my statement at the beginning. Sometimes what happens is clients will come to us for a specific use case. Let's say, for example, they need a system for their enterprise risk or operational risk. And then we set that up and they're using it, but then, they realize, okay, we need a system for compliance, right? How to monitor regulatory changes that come in, or how do we make sure that our policies are compliant with regulations? The nice thing is once MetricStream is kind of installed, if you want to call it that, although it is cloud hosted, let's say it's available to that customer, we tend to be a call that they'll make, and they'll reach out to us. Now, it's oftentimes separate groups within the client organization, but that's definitely a growth area that we see. Secondly, new logos. I mean, we as an organization are constantly receiving requests for RFPs and demos and things like that. I have to say this was one of the kind of most fascinating things about my moving from my old role to this role, which is that we were in a very niche business, right? Where if we got, 3 RFPs in a year we were thrilled. But here, I mean, you get, you sometimes get, 7 a week, right? So it's a completely different scale because we can add value to companies across any industry, really any shape and size. So definitely, it's the existing customers, the new customers, and then we have a pretty decent partnership ecosystem. One of the things we're super excited about is we just got named, this was the second year in a row, we finished 12th on the Chartis Risk Tech 100, which pretty big deal for a company our size. Moody's was number one. They've won that many years in a row. And it was a big deal at Moody's. And, again, for a company like MetricStream to be 12th is great. And the reason I raise that is, it's a good thing for partners, right? Because they can go out, they can sell our system, and we've got partners who become, implementers for us, and it represents a nice source of business for them, and they can leverage the MetricStream brand, to help grow their business. So it's really a combination, and we're really the partner piece is another area that we're pretty focused on in terms of expanding that partner network. So any potential partners out there, we'd love to hear from them, and figure out a way to work together.
One of the things we like to touch on when we talk to kind of CEOs is leadership and culture. Um, Everyone has their own unique approach. People like to talk about maybe their pillars or the key areas they focus on. What are some of the key areas you like to kind of communicate to your team?
Yeah. So I always tell this, and I would say this when I was at Moody's, and it was when I first gave my welcome speech to the employees here. Talked a lot about culture and what's important to me, and I think culture is underestimated sometimes in terms of the importance to the organization. And so what I think about, and what we're really trying to create, at MetricStream, is a culture where, uh, above all else, and maybe this sounds super cliche, but I believe wholeheartedly in effort. Right, one of the things that I have very little patience for is employees or workers who, they're not, their head's not in it. That they're not willing to give that 100%. And so I always say to my leadership team, like, I'd rather have somebody that maybe, they might not be quite as smart, but they're willing to work hard, and they're willing to give you the honest effort. So that's one thing. Secondly, big believer in accountability. Again, I was raised in a way where if we were like 10 minutes early for something, we were late, right? So I always tell that because, I get very frustrated when somebody, says they're going to do something and they don't do it, and they don't give you notice. And I think culturally, that makes a big difference, because when you work in an organization, people rely on, other people. And so you got to know you can trust the folks. So I'd say effort, accountability. I also try to push the boundaries of getting people to do things a little bit differently. I think all of us can get stuck in our ways, and, because it's comfortable. And I'm guilty of it as well, right? But what you see, and I think we see it more and more every day, the ways of working and doing things differently is critical. So one thing I challenge the team with here is to say, look, first of all, what our priorities are, and if you're doing something that isn't really moving the needle on our key priorities, then you should ask why we're doing this. But if it is part of our, one of our key priorities, and it is going to move the needle, then think about, like, am I doing it the right way? It is, am I doing it just because, hey, this is how we've always done it here? And, it's a hard change, right? It doesn't, that change doesn't happen overnight in any company. It requires, continual reminders of that. But those are some of the main things culturally.